It's the Hot Rod Podcast with Ron Foreman and Brady Wright. We literally live, eat, and breathe cars. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Make sure that you hit the subscribe and the like button, mash the notifications on so that you'll know every time we put a new show together and bring it to you here on YouTube. Time to get going. Let's see what's happening this week. Hey, we're back. This is the Hot Rod Podcast for this week. Show number 5 is kind of a non-show because Ron is just recovering from some flu-like situation. But he's been under the weather. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, he's speaking flu language. But yeah, I mean, he's been under the weather for 10 days or so, and Marcia too. But you're both kind of back on the good foot now.
Yep. Good. Yep, we're back on it and back to work for 2 days. Marcia's been back to work for 2 days.
Jeez.
Looking good, but we got some situation down at our friend Troy and Christie's. They had a really bad situation with some flooding.
Yeah, for those of you who, the people who are part of the Rat Bastards Car Club were aware Troy's got a place down south of Seattle, and they had a lot of flooding down there, serious bad stuff. And let's just say, if there was a way for him to row in and out of his house, that's what he would have had to do. The water was pretty bad, but it started to recede, so Ron's going down there. You're going down there this weekend?
This Saturday, we're going down. We got a bunch of friends coming down. My Oldsmobile transmission got flooded. My 440 Ford motorhome was underwater. My 55 Buick two-door hardtop was underwater.
So
not to mention all the cars and trucks that Troy and Christy have.
He's got to have 30, 40 cars up there.
Well, probably 30.
Yeah, 30 there's a lot.
Yes.
Plus parts and pieces, and then what he's got in the shop. The shop was there by a foot.
Luckily, the Oldsmobile was up on a 4-post lift, and it was out of water, but the transmission was underneath the engine stand, which was underwater.
Well, plus everything in the shop. I mean, all the junk that was on the floor. I mean,
about 4 feet high off. Everything 4 feet high off the floor was pretty much underwater.
Yeah. Well, you'll get some of it cleared up this weekend, and next week we'll have a good show.
All those toolboxes, all that stuff, welders, air compressors, all that stuff's underwater.
That's the piss.
Gotta try it, and then all the neighborhood garbage.
Right.
Flowed into their yard. 5 trips already to the junk yard to get rid of the garbage.
People don't think about what kind of damage floods do.
Oh my gosh.
The water is bad enough, but it's the cleanup. The cleanup can be, worse. Plus, you got contamination. You got where'd the water come from?
Well, they're not in the floodplain, so their insurance doesn't cover any of it.
Right.
They don't have flood insurance, so.
Yep. Not so good.
Even their neighbors, there's got 4 neighbors that have the same situation, that they weren't in the floodplain, so they didn't have flood insurance. So it was a fluke thing. I don't know if you can get a hold of FEMA or one of those companies.
Maybe. Well, sending my best. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but tell them I'm thinking about them. Hey, I got a question for you before we sign off here.
Absolutely.
I just want your input. I have the truck, my 41 Jimmy, out there in the garage, and I'm getting ready to do some things on it. I got to get the cab, is moved back onto the back of the back of the frame, so I can get in underneath there. I got a new shifter, but it's a floor mount, so I can't really do anything with it until I get a floor on there. But I want to know what's your opinion of what I should do while I'm under there, because I got 4 things I got to do. I got to run the fuel lines from the tank back up to the front so I can, plumb up the carburetor.
Yeah.
I got to make sure that the brake lines are hitting where they're supposed to hit. Now, they never got unhooked from that chassis, so I think they're good, but I got to make sure. And then I got to take. I've already replaced. I did this backwards. I've already replaced the calipers and the pads on the front end, but I didn't replace the rotors. So now I got to take them off and do the rotors and put them back on. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just like, okay, I've already had it out. Now I got to do it again. So if you were going to do a project, because all of them got to get done.
Yeah.
What would you recommend that I do first?
Why did you remove the cab?
because I got to get underneath there and make sure that the fuel lines and the brake lines, which are running from the back, get up to the front to the brake booster and everything else.
But the brake booster's not there because you moved the cab.
Yeah, but I got to get the lines run up to where I can hook them to the thing. Because it isn't anywhere close to where the stock one was. You know.
Okay, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But see, I wouldn't have moved the cab until I had it bolted down where it needs to be, because remember with the steering,
right?
We thought it was off, but it actually wasn't, because it wasn't bolted down.
It is, yeah. But the other reason I moved the cab was I got to get underneath it and drill the front cab mounts. I got them marked, but I can't get to them from the top. I got to get them from the bottom.
Well, drill your cab mark, drill your holes, and put the cab back where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then once you get the cab bolted down to where it's supposed to be, then you can cut your hole for your shifter, or you can mark it where it needs to be for the shifter. You can run your brake lines where it needs to go for your master cylinder.
Yeah.
And you can run your fuel. Are you going to run them through the frame?
I'll run them along the frame.
Along the frame or inside the frame?
No, I'll run them along the inside rail.
The inside rail.
It makes more sense that way.
In the channel.
Yeah, everything's on the left side basically. So if I come up the left side and then come up in front of the cab, I'm there at that point.
As long as you have enough line, that'd be awesome.
Well, I can always get more line.
Once you get the cab where it's supposed to be, then you can make your marks for your hole for your shifter.
Yeah.
And then you can run your brake lines where they need to go to fit the booster.
Right. Well,
then once you get your hole for your shifter and you got it bowed down, then you can move it back, cut your hole for your shifter.
Right.
Mount your shifter.
Actually, it turns out I don't have to make too big of a hole for the shifter. So I got the floor pan. I got the floorboards, but I was going to have a shifter that hooked onto the transmission. I found out it wasn't the transmission that I thought it was.
Oh, okay.
It's a turbo hydromatic, but it's an unusual one that only came with this particular motor.
Okay.
So I can't do a transmission mount shifter. I have to do floor mount shifter.
Okay.
So in a way, that's going to be easier because smaller hole.
Still, so is a cable?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it a lot easier.
So now I just got to get the thing in place and figure out where it is. It'll have to do a little cutting, but it's not going to be as horrible.
I'll put your holes in for your cab for your mounting, and then get your cab mat balled back down, and then you can do your steering, you can do your brakes, and all that stuff, and your shifter after you get your
and here's another one. You may not know this, but you may know the gas tank that I got was from the Honda Passport that I used the chassis from. So the gas tank is fine, but the fuel pump is set up for a EFI, and I don't have one.
No.
Do you know an outfit that makes a step down?
Yep.
So who is it?
Speedway Motors, the Hot Rodder's Bible.
Of course. Well, I got Speedway and Summit's catalog, so I'll call them.
Summit might. They have it. They probably would have it too.
Probably, yeah.
But I've spent so much money. Speedway.
Yeah. Well, and before we go, I have to say really nice things about the guys at LowCar Shifters.
Oh yeah.
I called them up because I was trying to figure out the right shifter to get, and I said, "Here's what I've got, and I think this is it." But the shifter that I got originally, which was ordered for me, turns out not to be the one.
Right.
And he said, "Okay, well, send me pictures of the transmission with as much data as you can get." He says, "I'll tell you what you got." So then he comes back and he says, "This is, one of the techs down there took a whole bunch of time. We went back and forth with emails, 4 or 5 times, looking at the pictures." He says, "Okay, here's what you got, and here's what you need." He says, "But I can't guarantee that this will fit because you've got one little adjustment thing that you got to do." And he says, this shifter sent me the information. This will work. The only thing that I'm hedging on is the actual bracket that hooks onto the transmission, the shift lever and everything that you're going to do. That you may have to make one of those.
An actuator or whatever?
Yeah, because we don't have one that's necessarily for that transmission. It's not an uncommon transmission. It's just isn't one that we've made one for. But he gave me as much information as I think anybody, and he didn't charge me a dime, of course.
This is Summit?
No, this is LowCar.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Shifter manufacturer.
Right on. That's who my shifter and my hot rod is.
Yeah, and he was really helpful super, forthcoming, great guy. And yeah, I can't say enough nice things about him.
Yeah, mine is a slush-o-matic Powerglide.
Yeah.
Powerglide. You have to actually drop the pan to actually hook the LowCar shifter inside there. There's some things you got to do inside there.
Yep.
It's been 15, 16 years ago. I can't remember exactly what it is, but you got to do some stuff inside.
Yeah.
Take the pan off and put that in there, mount it in there.
I'm real familiar with Powerglide.
Those guys are really awesome. They really
they are. Well, I'm pretty familiar with Powerglide transmissions. I had one in my '56 Bel Air, and I had one in my '63 Impala. And once you've adjusted one of those things, you never forget. I mean, it's tighten it all the way down, 2 1/4 turns back from bottom, from bottom center, tighten the nuts, done.
But there's some things you have to move around and to hook inside there for the shifter to work the LowCar.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing outside.
No, it's all inside.
Everything's inside. Yeah, it was a good design. It was pretty solid. I happen to know.
55 Impala. It was in my 55 Chevy Shorty.
Yeah.
Probably will be in my 56 Shorty.
Yeah.
It's in my 31 Model A.
I'm sure that they didn't design them for this, but I happen to know that if you really want to break the back wheels loose on something with a Powerglide, you can rev it up in neutral to 3, 4, 5 grand, and then just,
We need to talk. Huh? We need to talk.
I've heard that this is true. I wouldn't know personally.
Well, it's a 62, so it's an older one, so.
Yeah. Well, mine was a 63. I had a 56 and a 63. I'm not sure. No, I had a 70 Monte Carlo, and that one had a 3-speed in it. I mean, a three-speed automatic. It wasn't a Powerglide. It was whatever the next generation was after Powerglide.
Well, they had the cast iron ones, which were usually in the trucks. Mine was the fiberglass or the aluminum cast.
Aluminium.
Yep. They're indestructible. I love those Powerglides, man.
Pretty much. I mean, you could beat them to death for a weekend and then just go back and readjust the bands, and they'd last for another couple of years before you really had to take one apart.
It's 62 years old. I mean, I've had it since 62, and it's 2022. So what is that?
Yeah.
60 years old.
That's old.
I flushed it out twice and put it back together, and
that's basically it.
Keep going. It's like a Timex walk. It's keep on ticking.
Takes a licking. Well, listen, brother, I'm glad you're feeling better. Tell Troy hi. We'll do a show next weekend, and we can put some video together and show people what we've been doing.
Everybody, keep them in your prayers. So you can use it. They've got 8, 9 kids now.
Oh yeah.
And dealing with all this stuff, it's just been a lot of stuff. Really blessing for people to come together and help them out, and they really appreciate it. So keep them in your prayers, and we really appreciate that. Everyone, thank you so much.
No kidding. Well, thank you guys for going down there. That's a great deal, and like I said, tell them hi.
I sure.
That's it for this episode of the Hot Rod Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to our show, and we appreciate it if you smash those notification buttons too, so you'll know when a new one drops. For Ron Foreman, I'm Brady Wright. This has been the Hot Rod Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.